Hello, everybody, and thank you so much once again for joining us on this yet again another live session. I know it's been such a long time since we had a live video, but I do hope that you have been enjoying some of the videos that I have been posting on this channel. So, welcome, welcome. Please let me know where you're listening in from. If you have any type of questions about Erasmus, you know this channel is all about study abroad. We tell stories about people who have come to study abroad. And if you're listening to this much later, obviously, please interact with me on the comment section. Let me know if you have any questions about Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters programs. And also join the community. We have the Kenya Erasmus community that we have on Facebook. I always preach word about this, and I will definitely be leaving a comment down below in the description so that you can also join the community so that you're not left out when it comes to Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters Program applications. So now today is not any different because my guest is one of the successful candidates who came to begin their master's program this actually last year. I shouldn't say this year. It's actually last year. I mean, time flies quite fast around here, you know. So she came to begin her master's back in, I believe, end of September. Around there in October, and she is from Kenya. And believe me, she's already had it because moving away from Kenya to Europe to study and uprooting your life and trying to learn new things, new languages, new ways of doing things, new ways of studying, etc. I mean, it's quite a lot. So I know that she has been through it and she's had an experience already applying for Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters programs. And so she is going to be speaking about this experience from her own mouth. So, you know, on this channel, we like to hear things from the horse's mouth. And so she is a fantastic student. She's a fantastic person and a fantastic animator, I should say. And so without further ado, I will welcome Doreen Mwirigi. Hi.
Hi, Duta.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I am good. And how about you? How is everything? How is life so far? So far, in one word? I know there are many words. So far, how is life in Europe?
Life is awesome.
Awesome. Good. That's
It's
all
really
I want to hear.
good.
So I mean, like I know that we have obviously spoken in the background about your process coming to Europe and so on and so forth. But today I want to hear the whole story. So now, who is Doreen, and you know what did you used to do in Kenya before you even decided that hey, I actually want to go and study abroad. I am done being here in this great country of Kenya, and I am looking for an opportunity abroad. And so I would like to know, so what were your thoughts before you even applied? What did you used to do even before you actually applied for an Erasmus Master's program?
Oh, okay. So Doreen is an animator, and I've been working in the animation industry in Kenya for around 2.5 years before
Wow.
I decided to apply for my master's in Europe. I was working with a company back at home,
Yeah.
Chomoka Studios. Some of you might already recognize
Okay.
me, but yeah, I mostly worked with Chomoka Studios, just being the motion design director at the company and working on animation projects. Yeah.
Perfect. Nice to hear. So you were working on animation projects, and what made you think that hey, I want to go ahead and pursue a master's in animation because that is what you're doing currently? Was there a mindset, or did you have a plan, or was it just gafla bin vu? Here I am, you know. So what was the thought process before you even began?
Well, it's super interesting because animation is an industry that moves really fast. It advances technologically in a very fast way. And I remember when I was thinking of furthering my studies in animation, I was looking at the animation industry in Kenya, and we were kind of we kind of do like these similar animations, and I remember thinking maybe I want to become an international animator. How do I get to learn the new technologies that are being used in the animation industry? How do I prepare myself to be like an animator in the future? So at that moment I was looking to kind of advance my skills in animation.
Okay.
And yeah, I started my hunt to see if there were opportunities that would further my career in that way, because I've always known animation is my passion.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so can you tell us, did you graduate? Which university did you graduate from? Was it the university, or was it other universities? Because there is the University of Nairobi, and then there are other universities. So which university was yours?
Well, I graduated from the Multimedia University of Kenya. I graduated from Multimedia University in
Okay.
Kenya.
Yeah.
I was pursuing a bachelor's in film and animation with
Right.
with a specialization in animation. Animation was my major. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Great, great to hear. So now you graduate, you start working, and then you're looking for these opportunities. How many opportunities did you actually look for before came across Erasmus Masters and you're like, this is it, this is what I want to apply? Or did you have already applied for so many opportunities until, it was the turn for Erasmus? Or how was it like actually?
well, it's very interesting because I applied for two opportunities,
Okay,
but one was in East Africa.
okay,
They had an organization that is called
okay,
Ladima Animation, and they had like this training for women animators in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And I remember applying for that and the Reanima, the Erasmus program at the same time.
okay.
And I actually got into Reanima and I went for the workshop, and then shortly after
Yeah.
I got like a successful email from the Erasmus that I've been shortlisted for the interview. So I only applied for two opportunities.
Wow.
One was in, yeah, around East Africa, which I
Right.
kind of went for the training, finished the training, and then I got into the interview process of Reanima. Yeah.
Right. And straight on, it was straight. You're successful. Yes, we're gonna give you a scholarship. So it was very straightforward for you, is it?
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad it was.
Oh wow, that is a fantastic story to tell, because like some people actually usually are very skeptical coming from Kenya, and they're like, you must have known someone, I'm sure maybe even your friends or some onlookers might have suggested that, you possibly had to know someone to get into Erasmus, but it is really your hard work, because the application and getting into an interview and finally getting the scholarship. I really do applaud you for this. And so I really want us to first talk about the application process. So you find this opportunity online, Erasmus, and you're like, this is it. So how did you start applying? What were some of the challenges that you actually had? Did you have someone to actually mentor you or maybe check your application? How was it generally?
I would say the application process is always a process that requires a lot of patience because when I started looking at the requirements that are needed, I knew I had to act and act really fast because the deadline was around December 11th, and
Yeah,
I learned about the opportunity around end of November, right?
right,
And some of the requirements that were needed, I did not have them at the moment. Things like transcripts from school,
right.
recommendation letters, that kind of thing. So I think the first thing for me was trying to get in touch with my former lecturers, trying to get recommendation letters from them,
Yeah,
trying to get in touch with my former bosses as well and tell
okay.
them, yeah, I'm trying this. Could you write a recommendation letter for me?
Yeah,
But I think what made the process a little bit easier, some of them were willing to just have like me write the recommendation letter for myself, and then
Right.
they go through it, and if they approve it, they can just sign. So
Okay.
that was, yeah. But when it comes to the school, they were a bit more strict on that because they needed to check if I was actually a student in that school.
Right.
And I remember having to come back a week later to collect my recommendation letter.
Right.
But at that moment, I knew it was necessary because you do
Yeah.
not want to mess up your application by not having the bare
Everything.
minimum requirements. It's a
Yeah.
very competitive program.
Sure.
And yeah, at that moment, I knew I had to start collecting everything that I needed so that I can apply. So,
Wow. Okay. So you had maybe a good relationship with a certain lecturer, because in terms of the recommendation letters, you really do need to have at least a lecturer who is familiar with your work, or maybe has supervised you before, or maybe you are friends or something. So is it that you had a good relationship with a lecturer in the university, or is it that you just approached someone blindly in your faculty, or how was it? Because I get that question a lot. People asking,
um,
so who is supposed to be my reference, and how should I approach them?
oh, I approached my favorite lecturer from
Okay.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I called her and told her about how I want to further my studies,
Yeah.
she advised me that I should go and talk to the dean of students. And
Okay.
she told me that just a recommendation letter coming from her would
Yeah.
not be enough. She advised me that I need to get the letter from the dean of the students and have the letterhead and her kind of like sign. And she also got in contact with the dean of students from multimedia just
Right.
to put in a good word for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's an amazing thing. And in fact, that is a very good point you make, that, at least if you approach someone you have had a good relationship with, or your favorite lecturer rather, they will either tell you yes or give you some very good advice about reference letters, especially if you're the one who is supposed to be uploading this letter to
Yeah.
the system, because some of the programs, they actually ask for the email of the person who is referring you, and then they will contact this reference person for them to get the recommendation letter. So now you have all your documents on, and so I'm wondering about your statement of purpose, because that's like the core of, it's your make or break for any application. So how did you go about writing your statement of purpose? Because, hey, you graduated, you have experience from work and maybe other experiences. So can you tell us how you actually did it?
Well, I think one of the things that I knew would really kind of make or break it, it's kind of like the level of honesty when I
Right.
was writing my statement of purpose. For me,
Okay.
I'll call it motivation letter because for us,
Yeah.
it was called motivation letter. And I checked what the program offers, and this is just to make sure that my goals that I have for myself and the ones that the program offer are in line, so
Right.
that it can become, so they can see that you've gone through the program and the requirements, and you know that's what they're looking for. And also at the same time, like I just said, honesty sells a lot,
Yeah.
because I'm sure if you go through the interview, it's very easy to know someone is lying when they write their letter of motivation, because they can see right through that, especially. So for me, it was a matter of being honest,
Yeah.
seeing what my goals are in future, and what the program covers that enables me to attain those goals in future. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so that's a very good point you make. Honesty in your statement of purpose or motivation statement, because also that's a certain European culture that is expected. Because, as you may know, if you are Kenyan and you're listening to this from Kenya, we tend to cook a few things here, a few things there, plagiarize from the internet a little bit just to make things sweeter. But it's always very important for you to be very honest, and especially because you also had an interview, and you would need to maybe reverberate the same thing that you said on your application on the same interview. just in case they have a question that they're asking from your application and you're like, did I say that really? So that's a very good point, guys. If you're listening to this and you're trying to apply for Erasmus Master's program, please interact with us in the comment section if you have any question, comment. I mean, if you're listening to this much later, then definitely again interact with me on the comment section. I'm happy to answer all your questions. I know it's a Wednesday and some people might be a bit tired, but if you're listening to this later as well, you can reach out to us on the Kenya chapter Erasmus Kenya chapter on Facebook. Excuse me, the word it's in the evening. I mean, how we do over here. So, anyways, so Doreen, once again, I'm very proud of you. But then again, I want to know now. So you have applied for everything, and now you are called for the interview. So, and the interview is also another very crucial aspect of Erasmus Mundus, and not all programs usually have it. So, once you received that email that you need to do an interview, what was the interview like? Or do you want to not say anything about it?
No. The interview for me was surprising, to be honest, because you prepare for an interview and expect that they're going to ask you specific questions, but then they hit you with questions and you're like, oh, I did not expect this, right? So I prepared for, tell us about yourself, the basic like interview questions. And I was like, yeah, we got this, we can do it. And I move on to the interview and they go right to the technical questions, And at that moment, if I was lying when doing like my letter of motivation and all, they would have known that I was bullshitting right from the start because they just went direct to the technical questions. It was a very short interview, like 15 minutes tops. We had to be online 20 minutes prior to time. And within 15 minutes, the interview was done. But a very short interview, and they wanted your answers to be precise. They want them to be like concrete. And then they inform you like the next time when you should expect to hear from them. Kind of thing.
Wow, great. So like, I mean, you didn't have the jitters, but of course you prepared for the interview. Perhaps maybe because of even the time zone differences. I would assume that you prepared a little bit, maybe, and allowed yourself some bit of time. I don't know, what time was the interview? Do you remember?
Of course. Of course I remember. My interview was around 10 a.m. Kenyan time. I don't remember in Central European time, but when they sent the email, they told us Nairobi time, 10 for me, so I knew. And I remember kind of like checking my internet like a day before, just to make sure nothing goes wrong, because they already specified that they have like so many interviews. They'll be doing interviews for like 3 days, and I kind of knew that I have to be there, because when I miss it, there's no other way of doing it, because they have to eliminate some people. It's just protocol. You just have to be on your best behavior, at least.
Absolutely. Wow. So I mean, preparing is very important. And then I just want to know exactly what this course is about, because it's called Reanima. So, based on your background, you did your bachelor's in the multimedia university. And, now transitioning into coming to do Reanima. Was there any specific curriculum or course that you are eyeing in this particular program? Or perhaps maybe you can take us through, for someone who is listening and who might want to do a master's course in animation. Perhaps maybe you can take us through the curriculum and some of the fantastic things that you guys are taught that would also actually edify your career, and perhaps maybe might edify someone else's career. So I don't know. Of course, you're familiar with the curriculum. Otherwise, I don't know, Kamul jokes or mama, what is it? So maybe you can take us through the curriculum.
Yeah, so Reanima is a master's in animation curriculum, and what is so amazing about it is it kind of like gives you more room for experimentation, especially when it comes to like other ways of animating,
Yeah.
because yeah, animation, which is still like a growing industry in Kenya, the kind of courses that are taught back at home, especially when you're in school, it's basically like specific types of animation, and they do not allow like much room to experiment, because the goal is always to produce like a short film by the end of your studies, which
Okay.
might come in a couple of formats like 2D 3D animation. But with Reanima, you kind of like get exposed to other ways of visually expressing yourselves in a very experimental way, you know. And the program is great because you get the opportunity to kind of like have this mobility
Right.
structure
Yeah.
where you kind of like study the first semester. For Reanima, you study in Belgium for the first semester, and there you kind of like learn how to conduct research
Right.
when based on your project that you'd like to work on. You start like learning how to research on it. You start learning on how to create the narrative structure and the different varieties of narration on how you can tell your story.
Right.
And you also learn how to kind of like reflect on the critical views of animation, because yeah, you kind of like start learning on things, kind of like what really makes a good artist. These
Right.
are like super things that maybe we do not really reflect on, especially because we have like this narration that an artist is supposed to be someone who does this specific kind of animation. So you already start opening up your mind to like new ways of
Yeah.
dealing and working with animation. And
Right.
then right after that, they move you to Finland, where I am currently.
Yeah.
And in Finland, I'm in Aalto University. And in Aalto, it's everything about experimenting now. You know, you've already done your research, you've
Yeah.
already kind of like learned about like the different ways of narrating your story, the narrative structure, and
Right.
now you kind of like start learning about these expanded ways of doing animation, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, after you kind of like experiment, and you know, you experiment by doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you have like these workshops where if you kind of like want to work with wood, do that. If you want to work with textile, when you're
Okay.
doing your animation, you have like a room to do that. If you want to cut glass, if you want to do stop motion animation, you
Okay.
can do that, you know.
Yeah.
And then you move to another country after like 6 months.
Yeah.
I'll go to Portugal, and in Portugal they deal with mostly with animated documentaries, where you kind of like create animations when you're kind of like socially reflecting on social issues in your culture.
Yeah.
And after you move through these mobilities based on what your personal graduation project talks about,
Yeah.
you can be placed in any of these schools for your graduation thesis, and
Okay.
that's where you spend the fourth semester. So
Wow.
that's Reanima in a nutshell. It's
Sounds
great.
like such a journey because one, you're trying to go around Europe, you're trying to, learn new ways because you're not just going to study in these universities, you're also living in these cities, that different cities that you're going into. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I am curious. So, what is your specialization? Is it 2D? I'm not very familiar with animation, I must say, but is it 2D, 3D, or what is your specialization? And how is this experience of doing this masters edifying what you used to do before, perhaps maybe in your previous job or some projects that you are involved in or you are, doing back in Kenya? How does all
Yeah.
this tie in?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In Kenya,
Yeah.
In Kenya, I was doing 2D digital animation,
Okay.
like that category. But here, I do not have a specific genre that I'm working with, because I'm experimenting with like other ways of doing animation. So at the moment, I'm looking into stop motion, you know, it's kind of like trying to find an animation technique that kind of like helps me talk more about my project, that kind of like brings out the message. So it's mostly just experimenting with expanded ways of animation
Okay.
just to tell the story. So yeah, my mind is widening. It's
Wow.
the
Okay.
opportunities.
Did you ever expect that the course would be this immersive, or you thought that it would be the same experience that you had in the multimedia university?
To be honest,
Yeah.
I the program exceeds my expectation on so many levels.
Right.
When I came here, I had the mindset that I do this type of animation. I
Yeah.
just need to create like a graduation project, maybe create a short film, and I'm done.
Yeah.
And when we come and we have these lectures, they kind of make you think and rethink your project. So I what do you call it? I pitched a project.
Okay.
We have to write like a proposal
Yeah.
for the project that you want to create in
Right.
Reanima, right?
Hmm.
And we come and we have like these master classes, and I find my project taking like a 360-degree difference because of the kind of like coaching that you get.
Yeah.
And now I kind of like, when I do that, I kind of open my opportunities with what I can do in animation, because you
Right.
never really know till
Yeah.
you've been through it. And
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Wow, 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 wow. Like, I mean, and I think that is a very good point to make for anyone else who is listening. Like, Erasmus is very immersive. It doesn't matter which course you actually did, because even back in my day, I was like, oh my God, where have I been? Like, why didn't I ever had to study so much and do a lot of journaling and a lot of papers that you'd have to read and analyze and all these kind of things. So it's a very, very immersive course, and it's 2 years, guys. So you can imagine within those 2 years, you have loads of exposure, loads of information, even for you in the future. And yes, it is very, very much possible. Doreen and I are right here telling you that it's possible, because I'm also a product of Erasmus. So, guys, if you're listening to this, once again, this is another call for you to interact with us. If you have any questions, any comments to Doreen, please, this is your chance, obviously, to go ahead and interact with her. And if you want listening to this later, do the same. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So now, I have another question for you. So it's all about transition, because, like I said before, it's not just you going to these different universities in Europe, because that's the heart of Erasmus, but it's also about you living in those different cities. So I want to know your transition from Kenya to Europe. So you're like, your friends are like, oh yeah, Europe, okay, sawa, okay. Then you arrive and you're like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? So I don't know what your transition was like. I know we've spoken a little bit about it, but I want to hear. I want to hear
Well,
the one moment. Okay.
oh, what can I say? Let me start.
A lot.
The transition from, yeah, I think the transition from Kenya to Europe,
Yeah.
like the information that I got to get the visas and all that,
Yeah.
that was the easy part. I thought it would be the hardest part, but because Duta really came through for us, trying to tell us the ins and outs, and
Yeah.
having like us form this community of other people who had gotten the scholarship, where we could help each other with circulating information and getting our visas, getting ready, what to expect, and that kind of thing. But you never really get prepared for what to expect when the time comes. You just have to experience it by
Yeah.
yourself, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like one of the biggest culture shocks for me was the language barrier. You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, that was like, I think that is, I did not expect it in that way. In my mind, I knew, I can speak in English. It's like one of the national languages in my country.
Are you
In my
sure it's a
country,
national
hey,
language?
hey, after Kiswahili, hey, it's just English. I know. in my mind, I'm like, English, easy. The program is in English,
Yeah.
but nothing ever really prepares you
Yeah.
for, especially because my first mobility was Belgium, and it's a country that has like three national languages, and there's German, French, and what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, you
I'm
got
here.
lost.
I'm here. Sorry about that. But yes, you were saying that German, there's French and
Dutch.
Dutch. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but at that moment, I knew my course is in English. I should not have any trouble. But you
Yeah.
find that most of the things in the supermarkets are in Dutch. Sometimes you just buy something from the supermarket and they'll say something and you just know, like, get your things and go. Because you
Yeah.
have no idea what they say to you,
What they
and you
say.
have to you have to keep translating everything because you
Right.
have to check.
Yeah.
And also the accents also come into play, where you find that, especially because you everyone has like such a heavy accent, you
Yeah.
have to talk in a very slow way, in a way that people will understand you better. So
Yeah.
I think that's, for me, was like the biggest culture shocks.
Yeah.
And also the fact that people in Europe, they are very independent. Huh? Sisi watu wa kusaidiwa. Hello.
You are right. You are very much right.
Yeah, everyone in Europe is so independent. You expect that, especially us Kenyans, we are very community based,
Yeah.
and you find that everyone in Europe has like a very independent mindset, and that is something I had to adjust to.
Yeah.
And no one told us about the currencies. Yeah, we knew, but
Yeah. The conversion,
uh,
like
the
everything.
conversion,
Yeah.
the conversion,
You
I
should have talked by now. I mean,
yeah.
you'll be thinking Kenya shillings, you'll never move, you'll never do anything.
Yeah, Duta. I think we've talked about this before, because the first time I went to the supermarket, I
Yeah.
walked in, looked at the prices, and said, okay, I'll come back later. Then I go home and I wake up in the morning. I did not have breakfast. And I look at it, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm ready to buy something and I should not convert it to my local currency, because it didn't make sense to me at that moment.
The math
But
was not
well,
matching. So it's like, yeah, that
yeah,
happens a lot. Yeah.
you look at onions or
Okay.
tomatoes.
Yeah.
You look at them and they're like 2 euros, 3 euros, and you think, this is 20 Kenya shillings. This is 0 point something in my culture. You're kind of like, oh, that's so much. But
Don't do that.
you yeah, I'm still training not to do it. But sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, it always happens because we are not used to these kind of things, and especially when you start converting into Kenya shillings, then you will be like, that is way too much. Like, you will hear that maybe just small pieces of tomatoes and onions, and maybe that's like 5 or 7 euros, and then you start converting times 130, and you're like, why would 5 onions cost me 800 plus 900 Kenya shillings going? Like, it does not make sense at all. So I mean, like, these are some of the things that you are not yet used to it. Apart from the language, I would assume that maybe you had Google Translate helping you.
I had Google Translate, but sometimes it can be, I think, a bit annoying and
Okay.
frustrating, especially if you walk into supermarkets and you know what you want to get, but you have
Yeah.
to translate this to make sure it's what you want to get, I think. So
Right.
sometimes you just think, am I dumb? That kind of thing. Am I dumb?
Now I wanna talk about the transition in terms of the institution transition, because now I know, now coming from Kenya education system and then coming into right into the heart of the European education system, which is very different, and even the way they grade their assessment, continuous assessment tests and exams is very different from what we have back in Kenya. So, how was that transition like? Because I'm so sure you're not yet ready for that, but perhaps maybe you can tell us your experience, especially now in Belgium, having come from Belgium, studying in Belgium, and then now to Finland.
Yeah, so I think the transition into the European
Yeah,
way of studying
yeah,
was something that I had to adjust to in a very big way, because the education system in Kenya is very different
yes.
to a KU. So
Please excuse us. I am Kenyatta University material, so yeah,
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 some still good stuff. So so I think mostly was to kind of like, when I do not understand something,
yeah,
because at times the lecturers, when you come to like a master study, they expect that you're already at par with
yeah,
what they're going to be talking about.
exactly.
But unfortunately, sometimes that was not always the case,
Yeah,
and I had to kind of like look for lecturers, kind of like get more feedback, or just tell them, the class that you just had, I did not understand this and this and this. Maybe could you have like a coaching session so that I
yeah,
can understand this better? So
yes,
I think that really helped. And I also noticed that the lecturers in Europe, si tunachomea wa Kenya, but European lecturers are very friendly, I think. They are always, oh, nimechoma.
that part. Yeah,
They're very friendly in such a way that it feels like more of a peer-to-peer interaction. It's like they are helping you create what you want to do, and
right,
I really like that. It's something that I also had to adjust to. See,
right.
kwenye unasikia ni kama unaogopa mwalimu. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. So one of the points that you made is, the lecturers are very friendly. They possibly are more available. How about the assessments in class? Like, I know, like, for instance, in Kenya, when you get like grade 8, it's either A, B, C, D, E, or,
Mm-hmm.
there's not an in between, anyways. But here, it's like you're graded out of 20. And so
Yeah.
now that changes drastically, and you have to, get your head into like you being graded out of 20 on the European
Mm.
grading scale. So I don't know, whether that was, something off for you, because I know for me it was like, oh, it's out of 20. It's not out of 100. So you have to pull up your socks. And
Mm.
I don't know how it was in your class yet, or I don't know.
Mm.
Mhm.
To be honest, I've not been graded yet in on the semester in Belgium,
Yeah,
but we already know about grading out of 20,
yeah,
but mostly because animation is a program that is more in the artsy level.
right.
So we had like these classes where the lecturer would explain, this class, this is what you're required to do, and
Yeah,
these amounts to this number of ECTs.
right.
So when you kind of know that, whatever it is you're working on,
Yeah,
maybe the highest mark is 12, right? And
yeah,
you just try your best to meet that.
right.
But yeah, I think I'm not very familiar with the
Okay,
system yet.
okay,
Maybe we
okay.
can have a side chat on that once I get my results back, and
Perhaps we
I
can
can give
have.
more clarification on that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. But how can you say, like in terms of the students, like I don't know how many students, different nationalities are in your class, but how was the interaction with the foreign students as well as the local students? Was there, some type of difference when you compare to the Kenyan system, and, like in Kenya sometimes, like in KU, we used to go to the university back to the semester when Cat 1 begins, because we are like, yeah, it's not that serious. So I don't know how the interaction was, with the university in Belgium, whether you guys, of course, in the European system, you have to be there on time. Like the day one, you have to be there because
Yeah.
there's no in between for that. But I want to know the interaction between you and the foreign students in your class, as well as the local students in the university in Belgium. How was it like? Was there any type of difference that you noticed, or no?
Hmm. I don't think there would be such a major difference because everyone is curious, especially when you're an international student. Everyone is curious of where do you come from? How is your culture like? So for the local master students and the international students in my class, it was mostly like being curious about each other's culture and where you come from. And the school also organized these workshop and events where we could kind of like get to know each other, get to know the projects that the local students were working on, as well as the other students in the campus. So I think that was really nice, especially in Belgium, because it kind of like allowed us, and sometimes you'd also have like these common classes together,
Right.
like the international students, Reanima students,
Yes.
and also the local masters. And
Right.
that kind of like gave us a lens to what they were working on and seeing what we were working on and having like at this co-creation thing, which is really nice. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that's a very good point. I mean, like in terms of the networking, so you would not feel very lonely and feel very alone in terms of like, the cultural aspect of the fact that maybe you come from the African descent and other people are not, and then maybe you feel, as if you're all alone or being secluded in the class. So that's a very good thing that your program did, in terms of the networking and having activities around everybody and, including everyone. So that's the thing that, it happens a lot, guys. If you're listening to this, I mean, why I'm asking this is because you will find that Erasmus Mundus joint masters classes will have lots of foreign students, and then you might feel as if you're a loner. But again, there's the spirit of coming together and, interacting with each other. Different programs have different activities. So it's up to you to just like let yourself go out there and meet these new people and interact with them and join in the activities that are being organized by these universities and these programs. So once again, I would like to again invite you for any questions. If we are just about to end this discussion, it's a very short discussion, but you will definitely be seeing more of Doreen because I would like Doreen would be very, very instrumental in our Kenyan community, Erasmus community, very soon. Hopefully, we are talking in the background, and we will definitely announce something in the meantime. And I would hope that you are motivated to hear her story, and you are motivated to learn that she actually did her application from Kenya without knowing a guy or a girl or someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone else. She actually applied for this on her own, and she got in, and she shot her shot really, and she was able to actually get the scholarship. So it's very much possible. Now, as we go to the next section, I would like to ask you now, what is one of your biggest culture shocks so far? Before I can ask you a serious question, one of your biggest culture shocks, do you know? Do you, or you don't have
Yeah,
to?
I do. I do. I think for me, the biggest culture shock is people in Europe are very honest. That's like, yeah, very honest.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, they're very honest people.
yeah,
When you get on, there's no one who's always checking if you're doing the right thing. They operate based on trust. They expect you to do the right thing, and they believe that you're going to do the right thing. And that way you have to do the right thing.
right.
So I think that's like one of the biggest culture shocks for me because sometimes we're
Mhm.
Kenyans. Duta, unajua sisi ni wa Kenya.
Na mimi usiniweke kwa hiyo nini box.
No, sometimes when you think you know someone, there's this time I went to repair my bike, right? And the person tells me that you'll get your bike after this number of days. And the Kenyan spirit in me felt like are you sure there's nothing you can do? Just, but sikufanya hivyo. I did not do that. But I think it's like, I just remembered, yeah, this is Europe, people just they're very honest people.
Yeah.
I really love that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that's a very positive culture shock. So it's not like you're like, oh, mnafanyanga hivi huku, but it was like, wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
was, it was like a really good culture shock for me.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Now, well, that's a very good point that you make. People are very, very honest, and it's true. And that's the reason why you need to be very honest on your application, which is what I want to go back to now, because there are some several pointers that people would like to know. So I want to apply for this animation masters. So what are some of the things that I need to look out for? What are some of the requirements that are needed from me for me to be able to qualify for this program, what backgrounds and so on and so forth. So perhaps we can start with, what requirements do you need for your program, Reanima?
Oh, okay. For Reanima, you need to have like a diploma from your previous university.
Yeah.
It can be in either field. It can, of course, if it's animation, that's really good. But if you have like industry experience in animation, but you studied something else in school, that's also okay, because they also require to kind of like see your portfolio, like what you've been working on,
Right.
which also should be accompanied with your CV.
Okay.
And then they also need a resident permit.
Okay.
They need an English test just to make sure that you can communicate and understand English well.
Can you
They
get a waiver for that English test, or you have to have it?
Well, it kind of depends. If your language of instructions, for me, it was different because there was like a section where they said that if your language of instruction was English,
Yeah.
you can just give them like a fast English certificate, of which I had to get it from my campus, from the Multimedia University of Kenya. And I had them kind of like attest that my language of instruction was English.
Yeah.
But for some who come from other countries, they had to do the English test.
Okay.
And then I don't think I remember all of them, but most of the application requirements are in their website.
Yeah.
And then they also need a letter of motivation.
Okay.
Will I remember everything? Yeah.
Recommendation letters. Yeah, recommendation letters, obviously.
Oh yeah. Recommendation letters, obviously. Yeah, and mostly also just making sure that you submit your work in time. I think that's also a requirement, because once you miss the deadline, that's it.
Do they have a caveat on when, that in terms of the deadline, when you begin the application? Because some programs would have like a 42-day caveat when you begin your application until the time you submit it. It has to be within 42 days. Was there a caveat for your program, or it's just pretty much open?
I think Reanima is very flexible, because they normally applications may start around October.
Okay.
And they might end in December.
Right.
Or January. For this year, they extended it to January, but they do not, it's just a certain duration, but they specify that this is the deadline and that's when you should finish then.
Right. Okay, so the requirements in this case, in general, you say the certificate from your bachelor's, and then you need your transcripts. You obviously need your passport, guys. Passport.
Oh yeah.
Like that is the first thing that you need. I know it's been an issue with getting passports in Kenya, but this is the first thing that, in case you want to come study abroad, that's the first step. And then you said your motivation letter. Some people might connotate it to a statement of purpose. Same thing. And I want to ask, for the statement of purpose, was there like a certain word requirement, or did they give you some certain headlines that you needed to reply to, or it was something that you just wrote and maybe you wrote it in 500 words or 700 words? What was it like?
They had like a word requirement. It was supposed to be below 1,000 words. Okay. And for the CV, they just said that they do not follow like any structure of like recommendation letters. it just needs to have like a signature of the person and like an email address of the person writing the recommendation letter for you in a very clear way. And the dating should also be like, do not give them a recommendation letter from 7 years ago or 8 years ago. So
You know how
yeah.
we do. Yeah. All right. So now, so in terms of the requirements, I think we are all set in terms of, what you need to actually prepare for beforehand. And guys, if you're listening to this, obviously, if you're planning to apply for this program, then you have to be on the lookout on their program website and read pretty much everything. The eligibility criteria is what will guide you in terms of what you need to, prepare for ahead of time, before they reopen once again, because they will reopen once again this year, I believe, sometimes in October, like Doreen said, October to December, or maybe it's extended to January, depending. But be on the lookout for that. The program website is something that you can also find through the Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters catalog, which I already preach about, and you can find it pretty much anywhere, on my videos here, or even on the Erasmus Kenya chapter page on Facebook. And be able to see even other courses that you can actually apply for, because we do not have a caveat once more of applying for just 3 courses. You can apply for more, but obviously we expect that you have your skill set and your experiences narrowed down, so that you're not applying for like 6 or 7 programs at a time. Like, you cannot really thin yourself that much. As much as you are very diverse, you're not diverse to the extent of qualifying for maybe 7 or 10 programs anyways. But the requirements, yes. So, and the recommendation letters, yes. But then again, also, what other preparations do you need to make? Do you need to, obviously you said about the interviews, right? So, and you said something to do with I think a residence card, so which is what I want to come to. What other preparations do you need to make in terms of like coming to Belgium, which is the first country? You would need, I think, to attest your papers in case you are a successful candidate. You need to
Yeah.
attest papers to the embassy. Can you take us through that actually? Because that's a very crucial process.
Oh, okay. So, once you've gotten like your award letter and now you're preparing to get your visa,
Yeah.
there's like a couple of procedures that you have to go through. And first, you have to kind of like notarize
Okay.
like your transcripts,
Yeah.
like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You
Okay.
have to also get your certificate of good conduct,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And then after that, now you kind of like have to go to the embassy, and kind of like submit these documents and fill in like an online application. Wait, let me start over.
Girl,
Mm.
just a few months ago. Just a few months ago.
Let me start over, right?
Yeah.
So you first of all have to get like your certificate of good conduct, right?
Okay. Yes.
From DCI, of
Right.
course.
Yes.
And then after that, you have to take your transcripts to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for them to be approved.
Okay. Is
And
that
then
when
after
you
you,
go to the post office, the 00200 post office, or you go straight to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Because that's always a question that is asked. Whether,
mm,
if someone is going to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, do they have to first go to register in the post office, the 00200, the one that I'm talking about, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Or how was your process actually?
My process was more of like you take all of them
Okay.
to the 0200
The
post office.
00200. It has a
And
name. You is forgetting. You know its name of this post office. Uh-huh.
yeah, it's the post office. The I never mind. so, so
Yeah.
after that, they
Yes.
take the documents for you in the
Okay.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and
Right.
then you pick them after like 2 days when they've already been approved.
Yeah.
And then after that, that's when you take them to the embassy yourself.
Right.
So they do that for you. Yeah.
Okay, and how much? I mean, does it cost you per copy? Because that's also another very,
Yeah,
common question.
yeah, it costs you. I think they kind of like notarizing your certificate of good conduct, the DCI one. I
Yeah.
think it was around either 100 or 200.
Okay.
I'm not very sure about that, but it was less than 300 shillings.
Okay.
And the others were, I think, around 100 bob or 200 per
Yeah.
copy.
Right.
So yeah, but for my program, they only required like the last transcript of your fourth year and your diploma,
Yeah.
your degree diploma to be notarized. But if you want to kind of like have all of them
Yeah.
notarized, you can pay for all of them. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Good to hear. So, now in terms of now the visa process, because I know that's another roller coaster which you have to now apply for. Because usually you would get your results, you would get a yes or no, I presume by around May latest. I don't know when you got your yes for the scholarship. When was it that you got it?
I got my yes for the scholarship, I think, end of March. No, actually, early May. Sorry, early May.
Early May. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you really had a very limited time in terms of doing everything because now early May and you have to report by at least end of September for
Yeah.
your studies. So you have May, June, July, August, and then now September. Guys, it's a short time. Believe me, because like you have to do the notarization, and then after the notarization, you begin the process of the visa and all these kind of things. And it's like you also may be transitioning. Maybe you have your home in Nairobi, you want to take your things to Ocha or something like that, or you want to sell your stuff, your apartment and uproot your life, and like there are all these kind of nitty gritty things that you have to do that takes quite a long period of time. So, I mean, would you say that you felt like you are rushing, especially because of the visa process? Because the visa process also takes a long time. Would you say that you felt that you had ample time, or maybe you felt a little rushed towards the end, or what to a last minute? Do you have a Kenyan? My friend. Eh?
Well, for me, I would say the visa process was, if it's a difficulty level, just at the middle, because
Yeah,
I started my application like as soon as I got the news that I should be getting ready to travel.
yeah.
Because, well, as Duta had told us before, she told us like the visa process will test your patience, huh? And I was not ready to be tested, but it turns out I was tested at the end either
Everyone.
way. So
Yeah.
so yes, I started my process and I submitted everything, but waiting for the visa to be approved was like the moment where my patience was tested a lot, because it took quite a while for the visa to be approved in the embassy. But eventually it was approved, like I think 2 weeks before I travel. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So like all this time you were waiting and you were wondering, waiting, wondering,
Yeah,
waiting, wondering.
I was waiting, wondering, sending emails, calling, checking in, not being sure if I should quit my job or not. Unajua umeambia watu unaenda Europe, huh? You've already told people you're going to Europe and you don't know what
Sangria
might
watu waje.
happen. So yeah, it was mostly just trying to see, will I get the visa? Will I not?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad I got the visa to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. I mean, your story is fantastic because it sounds as if yes, it was a patient's story. It was like straightforward as well. I mean, it's been almost a smooth transition, I believe, and moving from one country to the other as well. It seems as if so far so good, and it is definitely worth it. So I want you to tell us now what Erasmus actually covers, and your in terms of the living costs, in terms of finding a house, which was, I know, a huge thing also coming to Belgium, and you have to scout for a house, which is not easy. And maybe you can talk about, the sharing of houses and all these kind of things which are foreign to you. So, huh. What, first of all, does Erasmus cover in your program? You know, tuition, fees, insurance, all these kind of things.
Yeah. I think the tuition fees for Erasmus is 9,000 euros per semester. And it also kind of like gives you an allowance for travel and living. If
Yeah,
you're from like a partner country that is, I think, I don't remember how many kilometers, but it varies with the kilometers. Me from Kenya, they offered like 3,000 travel cost allowance.
yeah,
And if you're from a country that is a little bit closer to the coordinating institution, you get 2,000 travel allowance.
yeah.
And then they give you 1,000 installation costs. And then they also give you a monthly allowance of 1,000 euros
Right,
every for the next 12 months. Yeah.
right, right,
And the you get the travel allowances each year. So you get it when you're coming to Belgium, and after a year they give you another travel allowance.
right. Amazing. And then like I mean, so which means that every single part of you moving around, you staying in Europe is usually covered, guys. So if you're listening to this, please don't be worried about, coming over and wandering and being stranded, because this is something that is covered by pretty much all programs. You will find like the newer programs that have newer contracts will start giving a flat amount of 1,400, which will include the travel allowance as well as the installation costs. This is something that is beginning to happen already for the newer courses. But for the older courses, they will definitely do the same structure where you will have a 1,000 euros in stipend every month, and then you will have the travel allowance depending on the mileage, as well as the installation cost, which is usually standard 1,000 euros for pretty much everyone who will come over. And this is something that has been happening for quite a long time so far. For any Erasmus student you will ask, this is usually the thing that happens. So one thing that I also want to make sure here is like, some people ask, so can I come with my spouse? Can I come with my child and live here with your child, etc? I don't think so. But Doreen, maybe you can tell us, so far, would you would you have been willing to live with a spouse or your child? Because it's a lot. Life in Europe it can be a bit too much. It's not like Kenya, right?
Uh, well, there's some people who are doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's some people who come with their spouses and they come with their children.
yeah,
I think you just need to prove that you have the capabilities to
yeah,
take care of them. And there needs to be like a certain amount in your bank to
yeah,
kind of like check that out.
yeah,
But yeah, if you have a loved one and you don't want to leave them behind, you can bring them with you. I think it's open, but the people that have families in my class, their loved ones came in like way later after
yeah,
their loved ones had kind of like settled in.
yeah.
So I think it's possible, but I also do not dispute the fact that the program can be a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and what I'm trying to say here is that Erasmus is not going to cover for your spouse or your child, because
Oh yeah,
people always think about that they want to come with their spouses or with their children, and Erasmus is not going to take care of that. They won't even take care of the visa anyways, so that is on your own. So in case your spouse maybe has like a job that they can do remotely, then perhaps they can look into maybe a visa plan that is within a certain European country, and then maybe they can be domiciled there, and maybe you guys can travel back and forth, or depending on which other country you choose within the European Union, then maybe that is possible, but that is going to definitely be on your own. And then now I want to come back to the story of sharing houses. So the housing part is always something that is a mind-boggling idea in the first place, hearing that, oh, you're gonna be sharing houses. So how was it for you? In terms of sharing house, or did you even share, or did you get your own place, or how was it?
hmm. I think sharing houses was good in some sense because I decided to talk to some of my classmates, and before I travel, we already look for a house together.
Right.
And because we had already been in touch and talking,
Yeah.
you already form like a friendship of some sort.
Right.
And when you kind of like find yourself living together, it kind of like takes away the loneliness of being away from home, because you're all international students. Sometimes you support each other, especially maybe when you're feeling homesick. You
Right.
have like the same goal, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also way cheaper to share a house.
Well, very true.
It's
Very
way cheaper
yeah.
sharing an apartment and sharing like the common areas and just having like a room to yourself, compared to, having an apartment to yourself, because housing is also very expensive. But they have like, in Belgium they have like these designated student housing, which are a bit more affordable given the amount of monthly allowance that you're given in a month.
Right.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay. So for you, it was smooth sailing, I would say, and you liked it actually, because some people don't
I
actually,
like it.
it doesn't augur well with them. I also did it didn't augur well with me, because in Kenya, like you find like you have a one bedroom to yourself, and it's so easy to find a one bedroom which is cheap, or maybe like depending on the lifestyle of a person, perhaps this is not something that you might like so much, because again, living with people from different places, and you have your own standards, you have your own OCD moments, and you're like, no, that does not happen the way I know. So like I think it's definitely a good positive thing to hear from you, that it's something that you are welcome to, and you liked it, and in fact sharing houses is much cheaper when you're a student. It makes sense 100% to actually share. What I want to say, guys, if you're listening to this again, Erasmus usually does not cover for the accommodation. You have to look for it yourself, first of all. But they have lots of links and lots of, leads here and there in different cities and in the different universities that you will go to. So perhaps you can interact with the students whom you're coming with to study, and be able to get accommodation in that way, and maybe live and save some bit of money, obviously. So that's a good thing to hear, Doreen. So guys, now we are already past top of the hour, but I want to once again, I only see one comment here from Charlene, sorry, I had lost track of time. I just joined. Will this video be up on your channel? Yes, it's going to remain on this channel, and you can rewatch it using pretty much the same screen. And I actually just got one question for you, Doreen, when I posted this, that we are gonna have this, and it was actually about what were the pitfalls, or what were the challenges that you noticed when you were applying for your master's program? That was the question that I got. So, because I think you've answered pretty much everything else. So, what was some of the challenges that you actually felt that this is something that, I don't know whether I'm going to overcome, but eventually you overcame it? Was there anything else? And guys, if you have anyone last question, we have a very few minutes left, so you better type it now. So, what challenge did you experience, if at all you had any challenge?
I think I would say for me, it's getting the recommendation letters,
Oh,
especially from school.
yeah,
Sometimes, yeah, it takes a while for them to get back, and everyone, especially, they have other things going on, just to keep on checking and reminding them that I need to submit this by a certain deadline. I really need the recommendation letter. I think that's one of the things that I would say was something that I was very worried about, but I'm glad it really worked out
yeah,
at the end, because I had to kind of like keep pushing and explain,
mm,
yes, I'm coming for this recommendation letter, maybe like a little bit way later than I should have, but
right,
I really need to submit it by this time. Like, how can we work together in a way that I make it easier for you to recommend me, and also for myself as I submit the
right,
recommendation letters. Yeah.
right. Absolutely amazing. And then one other thing also, did you have to submit a resident certificate? Because this is also another thing that we talk about a lot. And guys, resident certificates usually you can get them from your area chief, but I don't know whether you actually had to submit one, or your program did not ask for it.
My program asked for it, but I sent a follow up text, saying I I might not know how to go about this. Can you accept my ID, like the
Yeah.
backside of it, like as sub? Can I submit that instead? And they were open to it, and that's what I submitted for my program. Yeah, but
Right?
most of the time, when you find that you're not sure about something,
Yeah.
it's easier to just email the school. They are
Yeah.
very busy people. It might take a while for them to respond to you, but they do,
Eventually.
and you get clarification on some of the issues that you might not be sure what to submit.
Absolutely. Guys, and I want to speak about the resident certificate right here because, again, I've posted this enough times on the Kenyan chapter, but then, I mean, it keeps on coming up every single time. So, usually, if you have a program that most of the programs actually, so the whole idea of a resident certificate is because, they have the Europe mentality that when you come to Europe, each of the houses will have an address. They will have, like, this is the exact address with the postal code, etc., etc. Not the way we have PO box. So the resident certificate is not like the PO box they are looking for. They are looking for evidence that you live in a certain place, a certain house, we would say. So this evidence could be from a utility bill that you might have. So this utility bill may be, for example, if yourself you pay like maybe for water and maybe you pay for electricity, and I'm not talking about tokens in this case, is that you receive a bill in your name showing maybe plot number this whatever, and your name is right there. That's what exactly they want to see. But then again, this is not something that is common in Kenya. We don't usually do that. I mean, it's like if it's electricity, it's tokens. If it's water, it's like maybe your landlord sends you, oh, this is the amount that you need to maybe pay. Or when it's internet, you're just buying bundles over there. Nobody cares about a bill. It's just online, everything. It's not, we don't have any paper trail. So what you can do in this case is definitely go to your area chief. One, you can go to your area chief and have them write a letter saying that you've been living within the vicinity. And usually they know like the landmarks or the plot numbers and all these kind of things. And they would just need to stamp that letter, and you can use it sufficiently for a residence certificate. Alternatively, you can ask your employer to write this certificate for you or letter for you, just to certify that maybe you also live, or maybe you have been within a certain vicinity. So these are things that you can also do. Or you can go to a lawyer or an advocate of the High Court, and they can have this letter written for you just to say that you actually live in a certain place. So, and alternatively, if you are unsure, again, ask the consortium. I always say this: ask the consortium, ask the consortium, ask the consortium all the time. Like, if you are unsure of anything on that website, just send an email. Eventually they will definitely reply to you. So that's very important to know. Now, Musa Abdi says, thank you. Received my unconditional offer from University of Glasgow today. Congratulations. Now patiently waiting for scholarship decision. We hope for the best, obviously. And in case you don't get to get a scholarship, please don't feel as if you're down and all this, because this is something that I also want to talk about all the time. Rejection happens, so you have to be real open-minded, and in case whatever happens, please make sure that you can also apply. Once again, don't feel as if this is the end. It's not the end. I keep saying I did not get my Erasmus the first time, I got it the second time. So hey, you can always give it as many shots as possible. So now, to complete this discussion, Doreen, I know, having come to Europe, posted that, hey, hashtag, hi guys, I'm in Belgium. Hey, hashtag, I'm in Paris. I'm here, I'm there, yeah, daddy's girl is right here. So I know that you have received enough people asking you, hey, how come you're in Europe? What are you doing in Europe anyways? And maybe some people asking, oh, so you're doing animation, so how can I do how can I apply for this? I don't know whether there's a way that maybe being here has led you to notice some of the pitfalls that we as African students have when we are applying for opportunities. Because sometimes you might see an opportunity and they're like, I don't think that is for me, maybe it is for those people. or maybe you're like not taking your time to do a good, very good application. I don't know whether you've noticed any certain pitfalls or some of the things that we undo as African students or Kenyan students for opportunities abroad, or I don't know. Maybe you can speak a little bit about that before we can close.
Okay, I think one of the biggest pitfalls for me would be like thinking that you're either too young or too old to apply for a scholarship because I've had this thing before when I tell people that I got the scholarship. They're like, yeah, it's because you're young, And literally in my class, I have people who are older than me, So I think there's this misconception that getting a scholarship is for young people,
Right.
You can further your studies in your late 30s, and that's
Yeah.
still okay. So
Right.
I think that, and also like postponing submitting your application to the very last moment, it's like not taking as much time to go through your letter of motivation, proofreading your work, just doing everything in a hurry, not going through the website and looking at what the program offers,
Yeah.
and submitting something that is not in line with what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So I think people really need to take time, and just give it the time it deserves when you're applying for that, and just do your very best. Yeah.
Absolutely agreed. So, like, I mean, like, especially the panic application, like the last minute,
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God, it has to be tonight. If it's not tonight, that's the end. So guys need to take their time to prepare for this. That's what you're saying. So, I mean, guys, if you're listening to this, come on, you know, you're listening to this now. Your program might be closed for applications now, but you have a whole 6 months plus to prepare. For you to be able to actually just when the application opens, you're not having the last minute. And these are things that you can do gradually, and maybe approach a few people here and there who've done it before and see whether they can be in a position to actually check your application or not. So you say, did someone actually check your application, Doreen, or you just sent it? It was just like, yeah, me, done.
I had a few friends check
Okay.
it
Yeah.
just to kind of like give me input.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it. Not anyone who's a professional, just kind of like checking, this is what I write. Do
Okay.
you think, how does this sound like?
Yeah.
Should I rephrase it like this? It
Yeah.
was more of my friends helping me
Okay.
apply.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's sufficient enough. As long as someone else actually checks it and gives you some ideas of some things that you can add, that's very crucial, guys. So like that's the reason why we have communities in the Erasmus communities, as well as LinkedIn will be your friend. You can go on LinkedIn and find someone who's done the same course and introduce yourself very well to them and let them know that, hey, I would like for you to actually check my application, and perhaps they can say yes, or the least they can say is no, right? So now I think we've had a very good discussion, Doreen, and I think that you've really let us in so far about your life in Europe so far, and so far so good, all good stuff. I love to hear it. Um, but I want you to give one point of advice to anyone who is looking to actually apply for any Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters program from Kenya, and what already I know that you have felt the change that has happened in your life, your perspectives changing, being immersed into things you never expected, the language, the different cultures, etc., going to different European cities and hashtagging. If someone is listening to this and they want to apply for an Emjm, and they're like, okay, so what is one piece of advice that is very crucial for them to hear?
I think it's just believe in yourself and do not give up.
Right.
It's kind of like do not shortchange yourself. Do not convince yourself that you're not good enough. Sometimes you just have to apply. That's the only way,
Yeah.
and if it's not successful, try again the next time. Yeah.
Right. Very good advice. Guys, I think that is very, very, very good advice. So if you don't take it from her, I don't know. I don't know who else you're expecting to hear from, But anyways, as I keep saying, I will definitely keep on trying to bring more guests, especially from Kenya, so that we can grow our numbers. Guys, our numbers are growing, yes, but we need more. We need more people. We need to get to the level where like the Nigerian community is taking over almost all the positions for Erasmus, almost 150 plus, going and going, which needs to be reflected in Kenya. Because last year at least we had almost 20 going, but we need more because we need more people to come and experience Europe and at least be able to see different aspects of culture, different aspects of education, and so on and so forth. So I do hope that this conversation has edified you, has helped you in some type of way, has given you that extra push to go ahead and apply for your program, whether it's Erasmus. If Erasmus is not for you, like I keep saying, there is so many other programs within Europe, US, Australia, wherever, really. And I do hope that this conversation has given you that extra push to go for it. And guys, I think we will leave it at that for now. And obviously, you'll be seeing lots of Doreen. You should have already seen her lots of it, her posts on the Facebook group. And we will definitely interact with her more often on this channel, on Facebook, and so on and so forth. So I do hope that you have a lovely evening, lovely morning, lovely afternoon, wherever you are. And Doreen, what do you say?
Bye.
All right, guys, have a good one. All right.
Have a good one.